Starting the test drive in this Edge SEL. I'm very impressed by how over the years Ford has kind of kept the Edge relevant in the sense that this has a 2-liter twin-scroll turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it's still pretty peppy, even though this is not necessarily an underweight vehicle, let me put it that way. So this thing still pushes this like I'm used to from that naturally aspirated V6 that used to come standard. But of course you're getting a lot better fuel economy, or you're getting like 1820 or 1823, something like that with the V6, and on this one you're getting I think 2126 with this 4-cylinder. So a pretty impressive setup. So acceleration is pretty good, and then when I put it into the sport mode, the tachometer comes up and then we can see where we are in terms of the RPMs we're getting. So it's pretty cool, especially for this kind of vehicle. But in sport mode, pretty responsive. And I mean, in regular drive mode it's responsive as well, but I'm just impressed that it'll push this beast of a 2-row SUV pretty well, just having the 2-liter 4-cylinder. And what's really impressive is the Edge STs. I've driven one of those, and I think that has a 2.7 liter in it. That's a beast of an engine right there on this thing. Now this segment has had so much competition. This was one of the first SUVs out that really kind of brought back the 2-row SUV. And then you had the Chevy Blazer come back. You had the Edge, of course. And then a lot of new competitors from other automakers. I think the only one that actually stayed relevant throughout all that time was Lexus. Always had that RX, but there was really nothing that stuck around. But the Edge, when they brought that, it was a good option, and it was extremely practical for what it was. It was for people who had a family that didn't want a minivan, didn't necessarily want a Tahoe, but they wanted something that had room inside. It was usable, had tons of cargo space, but you also didn't look like a soccer mom behind the wheel. And that made way for so many other vehicles. Now we're gonna give this some throttle getting on the interstate here, but I do wanna go back to the segment that this is in, and I think it's hard to really put it in a competitive match without pretty much every automaker has something like this now. I mean, BMW pretty much has the X5, I think. We talked about Lexus. Chevy has the Blazer. But this is one of those that when they came out, it was different. It was so different, and the looks were great, especially in like 2007, all that. And it made a statement, and it was new. And even to this day, it still holds a market share. It's still a vehicle that people want to buy. There's one right there. It really is a great vehicle. We're gonna turn the cruise on. Now I will say, compared to the rest of Ford's lineup, especially since the Escape just got refreshed, a lot of the features on that are much more luxurious. I think much more competitive than the Edge at this point. It's just showing its age a little bit. But I do think a slight refresh would just keep this in the running to be one of the better 2-row SUVs that are on the larger side. Let me put it that way. What makes it great is this doesn't drive like a huge vehicle, but the interior room, just its stance, everything about it just makes it feel like an Audi Q8 competitor or one of those big luxury SUV competitors that don't have third rows necessarily. They're just big and roomy. But for the price point, honestly, not a bad buy in my opinion, especially compared to what they were going for not too long ago. But this will bring me to the end of my review of this 2023 Ford Edge SEL with all-wheel drive.